Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from the Game Theaters about what if this Minecraft mob existed. Now, the thing is I had seen the thumbnail, and on this one it had the barnacle, but on another one it had that kind of cave trader mob. Sorry, not mon. Let's hop in and see what they're talking about.
What if the Minecraft mob vote were different? Year after year, Mojang had us vote on the game's next mob. This shaped the game and the lore as we know it. But if one of these votes turned out differently, it wouldn't have just affected the yearly updates. It would have changed everything.
That's true. The lore as a
Hello,
whole.
Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that answers questions like, what if things were different? Like, what if you subscribed? Think about how different life would be.
I'm
Worth
already
trying,
subscribed.
right? But while you wait
Maybe
to
the
see the
opposite.
results, let's talk about Minecraft. Last year, we did a video theorizing about the Copper Golem, a mob that lost pretty dramatically to the LA during the mob vote of 2021. But then, we got the Copper Age update, which resurrected the Copper Golem, officially putting it in the game.
It's like,
And
I
it's
live!
great. People have been super creative with them, from using them to run their entire base to pranking their friends. But all of this got me thinking. Before this, we thought every losing mob was gone forever because, well, Mojang said that's how it worked.
And remember to vote, because the free ones that you don't vote for, they will be gone forever.
But clearly, we are able to
This is
bring
gone.
back these
This
mobs.
is
So
life,
what if
I mean.
the other losing mobs were added back to the game? And more importantly, what would their lore be? You see, mobs are more than just silly little guys who populate Minecraft's blocky world. They're also valuable clues that help us unlock the game's secrets. In the
That's
past,
true.
they've played key parts in helping us track down the mysteries of the ancient builders and the overworld they left behind. If a different mob was
The world
chosen,
that
it
was.
could set off a butterfly effect, changing the way we see the world of Minecraft forever. So we are going to do something a little different today, loyal theorists. We are going to jump in our theory time machine and revive 3 rejected mobs, exploring all the
Ooh.
blocky implications that come with it. It's time for us to go into the Minerverse. No, not that.
Nah.
The Crafterverse? For now, let's just go with the Mojangverse. Allons-y!
The rascal. Okay.
The
so
first
that's
stop
what's
on our
called.
journey through time is to 2022. The Sniffer won that particular mob vote, totally legitimately, I might add. So we did a whole episode on this big boy. But while I too
I
was
kinda
drawn in
remember
by
that.
the Sniffer's promises of ancient secrets, I was also intrigued by one of the underdogs in this race, the Rascal. This mischievous little guy captured my heart with his gifts and never-ending games of hide and seek. But I quickly had to say goodbye to him because 55% of people voted for the sniffing dinosaur. So today, I'm bringing
God,
it
I
back.
know.
Based on the teaser Mojang shared, rascals are small creatures that would have been found deep underground, specifically
Probably
in
in
mine
mine
shafts.
shafts.
Once
Yep.
you see him, you'll embark on a high-stakes game of hide and seek. Find them 3 times and they'll give you a prize, like an enchanted pickaxe, for example. And that is pretty much all we know about the rascals.
I mean,
so
yeah,
how on earth can we
it's
figure
kinda
out how the
it.
lore would have changed with them included? Well, first, let's look a little closer at what we do know. The rascals call the mine shafts home, and we've believed for a long time that these mine shafts were built by the ancient builders as they mined
Seems
for
likely.
materials. So it would only make sense that a mob who specifically spawns in those mines and carries tools must share a connection with those ancient builders. But contextually, it also makes sense. The rascal would have been added to the Trails and Tales update. The update that's all about excavating and finding a lost civilization buried underground. In that update, we
True.
saw all of the pottery sherds, which led us to realize that the ancient builders were not just one monolithic culture, but consisted of multiple different tribes. The Sniffer,
Right.
the true winner of the mob vote, actually appeared on one of these sherds. Look how cute he is. But in the timeline where
Very
the rascal
pixely.
wins, this cute sherd would likely have been replaced with an arguably cuter sherd, the rascal sherd, or something similar, implying that they too would have had a relationship with
I think it would have been called on the Gifter Shard.
the ancient builders, much like we theorized about the Sniffer. Although, unlike the Sniffer, which is more of a pet, I actually think the rascals would have been more than friends. They'd have been more like equals, more than any
Like
mob we've
companions.
seen in the past. And it all comes down to mythology. Listen, I come from Europe, and there is no shortage of strange little mining creatures in our folklore. And this one hit
Oh,
even
yeah.
closer to home because I began looking into something I've always loved: knockers.
Whoa!
No, not like that. Knockers, these dwarf-looking
Okay.
guys. Get your head out of the gutter. Anyway, knockers
Yeah, I
are
didn't put that up.
supernatural creatures native to Cornwall, England, and it's
Oop, hold on.
They're ambivalent little fellows. Sometimes they're super helpful, and other times, not so much. When they're having a
like
bad
they'll punch
day,
you in
they
the face.
hide miners' tools or lead them through confusing tunnels to nowhere. But on a good day, they would lead you to valuable ores. Sounds familiar, right? We only know of one prize that they would give you, the pickaxe. But who's to say they wouldn't give you other valuable ores as a reward? And maybe the ancient builders failed that little hide-and-seek game, so they stole the tools from them, which they would now give to us. Or maybe it's actually something much worse. If you go back and look at the Knockers, they too were often depicted with pickaxes. And it wasn't just because they enjoyed hanging out in the mines. The real reason is actually much darker. According to legend, Knockers were actually the spirits of fallen miners. After dying, their spirits would remain in the mines, haunting or helping future miners for the rest of eternity. This means the rascals definitely weren't just friends with
Of course, what were we expecting? Of course it's dead people.
the ancient builders. They were the ancient builders. They are all the poor souls who died in the mines, either to the many dangerous mobs that were down there, or maybe they were some of the many who lost their lives to either the Wither or the Warden when those mobs came and invaded the ancient cities all those years ago. Now they live on as supernatural mobs, helping Steve to find the treasures that lie below the
unfortunately,
surface.
we'll
And
never
that could be a
know.
big help, because if you do go into your personal cave of wonders right now, how many treasures are you likely to find? December usually cleans me right out, and it can really take a while to build my savings back up, which is where our regular partner Chime is his time machine, and see where it pops us out next.
The glare.
In 2021, the mob vote was between the Allay, the Copper Golem, and the Glare. The Allay won that vote, and as we spoke about earlier, the Copper Golem was recently added to the game, leaving the Glare all alone out here in the Minecraftless void. So I figured we'd give him his moment in the spotlight, which, based on his mechanics, he'd probably quite enjoy. The Glare was supposed to be another helpful mob on Steve's journey. It would fly around caves letting you know when it's dark enough to spawn mobs, mainly by looking a little bit grumpy. And now I know, even at the time, we joked about how this felt a little pointless. But regardless of its mechanical usefulness, lore-wise, it definitely would have been an interesting addition. You see, the winner of the 2021 mob vote was going to be implemented during the Wild update. This update was huge, especially for lore reasons. We saw the addition of the ancient cities, giant underground structures seemingly built by the ancient builders, and we have talked about those things a ton in previous theories. But this update also included a new biome that we haven't really talked about, the mangrove swamps, a new area that was waterlogged and covered in overgrown leaves, roots, and most importantly, moss. Now take a look at the Glare and tell me that this little guy wouldn't fit right in. Just imagine sitting there in the middle of this biome, and suddenly, out from behind a mossy tree, this thing pops up. And the more I thought about a little mossy creature, it also reminded me of another creature from European folklore, the moss folk. These guys come from Germany and are similarly covered in moss and foliage. Their main role is to serve as guides for travelers found in the forest, warning people of danger, just like the Glare, warning players of dangers that await them in dark areas. But this is where I think things could have gotten really interesting. In folklore, if you were approached by one of these moss people, in order to receive their guidance, they would ask for something in return. Whatever the human gave them would determine their demeanor towards them. If the moss folk received a good offering, such as bread or porridge, they would aid the humans with gifts and guidance. But if someone gave them a bad offering, like caraway bread, a type of rye bread with caraway seeds in it, they would become angry. To be fair, if I asked for bread and someone gave me rye, I'd be mad too. Yeah, I said what I said.
You don't need to compliment him. He's barely a person. He's an intern.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Anyway, it would have been interesting to see this kind of mechanic working in-game. Just like you give an item to the Allay for it to hold, you could give the Glare bread to hold. Instead of porridge, maybe they'd accept offerings of mushroom stew. Once you befriend them, they'd tag along through the caves, keeping you away from danger, offering healing or maybe even positive status effects when fed more. But if you give them one of their disliked items, they become hostile, running away or maybe even attacking you. This would have been extremely helpful for the ancient builders and their ancient cities that we were introduced to in that same update. After the ancient builders created the Wither and began destroying everything, they fled underground, gathering what resources they could in the deep, dark caves, trying everything they could to hide from the Wither. So, a companion like the Glare, who could warn them of danger dangers lying in the darkness would have been a
Like Deja.
huge help for these guys. Maybe instead of regular carpets on the floor that they used to quiet their footsteps against the warden, we would have found moss carpets, with moss and foliage being stored in the loot chests of the ancient cities. The glare would have been their guidance and their supply for materials that they couldn't access underground, like leaves and moss. To us, the
There
glare
you
seemed
go.
kind of pointless, but for the ancient builders, they would have been vital for survival, at least during this stage of their journey, a mythical forest creature who guided them through the dangers of the deep dark.
The Barnacle, hey, so that was its name.
Now,
I
we're
can't
going
remember.
way back, all the way back to the very first mob vote in 2017. Back then, Mojang wasn't interested in helping us, they wanted to destroy us. Unlike the last 2 years we talked about, this vote actually had 4 creatures instead of 3, and all of them were dangerous. Unfortunately for literally everyone, the Phantom won. And now we have this annoying
Monster
airborne
of the
manta ray
night
judging
skies.
us for having a bad sleep schedule. In my humble opinion, any of the other mobs would have made much cooler and much less irritating additions to the game. But
I
my
do agree.
favorite of the 3 forgotten mobs has to be the Barnacle. The Barnacle was going to be a large sea creature, which would have been a welcome addition to the game considering Minecraft is kind of lacking in water enemies. All we really have right
That is
now are the
true.
drowned and both types of guardians. They're all pretty cool, but it's always nice to have some variety, you know? Anyway, the
Yeah.
Barnacle would have
Give
used
us-
its tentacle-like tongue to pull players
Honestly, yeah, give the ocean something.
and their boats down to the bottom of the sea. This would have added a bit of a challenge to traversing the ocean. Suddenly being pulled down
Ugh.
face to face with a huge monster definitely would have been terrifying. Just imagine trying to fight it or attempt to escape its tentacles before you run out of air. Plus, it would add some
God.
difficulty and intrigue while you're endlessly crossing the massive ocean biomes that Minecraft loves to generate. But we aren't here to talk about the mechanics of the Barnacle. We are here to talk about the lore. If it had won, it would have conveniently been a part of the aquatic update. This update actually made the oceans a little bit more interesting than they were before. We got a ton of new stuff like the ocean ruins, underwater chasms, shipwrecks, and treasure maps, which led you to a chest containing the heart of the sea. Which is completely unrelated to the heart of the ocean from the 1997 classic movie Titanic. So this heart of
Bit
the
of a
sea is a
shame.
strange blue ore that is essential for making a conduit, a device that gives the player the ability to breathe underwater when close by. This device is super useful for both Steve and the ancient builders alike. While Steve might be using it to build a cool underwater base, the ancient
that is
builders
cool.
needed it to literally preserve their way of life. You see, there was once a time when the ocean ruins were actually above ground. They were places of worship where the ancient builders gathered to
A
pay
true
respects
temple.
to the hosts, the gods of this world. But unfortunately, due to all the smelting the ancient builders were doing, the ocean levels started to rise, and fast. They needed a way to protect
Yep,
their temples,
it
so
got
they set
hot.
out on their boats to find the heart of the sea. Unfortunately, they weren't successful. Their ships got wrecked, and those who stayed behind turned into the drowned. The thing is, with the evidence that currently
true
exists in the
shame.
game, we don't exactly know why these boats crashed. They were tribes of fishermen and pirates. It would feel odd if in reality they were just incompetent sailors, especially given the amount of shipwrecks. The Barnacle
Yeah,
would
look at
have
that.
solved this mystery. When I first saw the Barnacle, the thing that came to mind, of course, was the Kraken, a sea
Kraken.
monster from Nordic
Nice.
folklore that's described as a giant tentacle-wielding monster that loves to tear ships apart
They're
or drag
big
them
old
down into
squid.
the depths of the ocean. This was the Vikings' explanation for the harsh
Oh,
waves or
octopus,
massive
but
whirlpools
still.
that destroyed their ships on voyages. They believed the Kraken would create these huge whirlpools by swimming in circles. The Barnacle is clearly supposed to be this ship-wrecking Kraken. Another cool thing is that since these myths were made,
That would actually be kind of cool. Like it's underwater, maybe just swimming around, but then if a player gets in within like 20 blocks of it, it like tries to determine like the course of path or something, and it plants itself down and just starts spinning its head with its mouth open, and then creating a whirlpool. But then they would have to somehow figure out how to implement that part into the game, which would definitely be a first.
scientists have researched the real-world explanations for the huge waves and whirlpools that were terrorizing the sailors. Scientists believe these were the results of tectonic plate movements. Earthquakes and underwater volcanic eruptions created whirlpools that sucked down ships, which is exactly what we see in the aquatic update when they added underwater chasms with magma blocks at the bottom that would cause the player to be
Oh, yeah, okay, no, there you go. Just give it that effect.
sucked down.
In
So
a 3
even though
by
we
3.
didn't vote the barnacle into our Minecraft timeline, some of the science for the barnacle still made its way into the game. So I count that as a win. That being said, a lot of the shipwrecks don't even generate near the magma blocks or underwater chasms, so we still don't truly know how these ships got wrecked. Unless the barnacle was added, then the wreckage would all finally make sense. These boats were desperately searching for the one thing that could save their families, only for them to get lost at
And
sea
pull.
with their ship's hull serving as their watery grave. Now to me, all of this sounds pretty cool, and it's always fun to jump into the theorist's time machine to go back and see what could have been. But as with any
Could have been
time
nice.
travel, there's a catch. Adding these mobs, at least back then, wouldn't have just added to this world's cool lore. The butterfly effect, these little
Would
changes
have
could have
changed
affected
the lore.
so much more. If the Rascal had won, the Sniffer would have been banished to the Shadow Realm instead. From a game perspective, let's be honest, these guys don't do much other than look cute. We would have lost some decorative plants, although I don't think people would be that upset about it. But from a lore perspective, the Sniffer was the answer to a bunch of our questions. It appeared on one of the ancient sherds, showing that it was alive at the same time as the ancient builders, and showing us that the timeline was over thousands, if not millions of years instead of just, say, hundreds. We then learnt that the ancient builders themselves actually brought these guys into the overworld from the Nether, explaining the crazy skeleton structures that we find in the Nether and the overworld. And then there's the plants the Sniffers were trying to dig up. We learned from history that those were used for medicinal purposes. So if it weren't for the Sniffer, we wouldn't have known about the entire Savannah tribe of builders and how they were actually healers. Then if we got the Glare instead of the Allay, we wouldn't have discovered the origin of the Vex, how Illagers were combining the Allay to create a new mob. We may have even lost our little helpers in Minecraft Legends, and I'm not sure the Glare would have been as fitting a counterpart. Then if the Barnacle
I'll
won,
agree with
we'd
you
have
on that.
lost the Phantom, which means, no, actually everyone hates the Phantom. We definitely should have got the Barnacle instead. But now, thanks to the Copper Golem, it is clear.
I mean, just a quick question, but is the Phantom even lore relevant?
That we can have our cake and eat it too. Have the best of both worlds and add these guys in, giving us even deeper lore to this already very deep
Come on,
game.
Mojang.
And if
You can do it.
decide to do that, Mojang, hit me up. Trust me, I've got plenty of ideas. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. World premiere.
Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all of you next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.